Hello, everyone. Thanks for jumping in on a Sunday evening to attend the session. We'll be having the third masterclass today in the sequence, which is on cryptocurrencies, coins, and tokens. As a part of the in person sessions that we've been conducting, we've already covered. ERC 20 and ERC 271 and things like that. So now Akash is going to be walking us through the topic as well as towards the end share some important problem statements which is going to help with the internship plan as well. So happy learning and enjoy. And before that, a little bit about Akash. I mean, over to him with respect to how much he wants to share about himself. But from what I have seen, he's one of those very few people, I think, who's been super fortunate to start working on blockchain right after university. And from what I know, he's also been working on blockchain and related tech end-to-end integrations even before graduating out of college. So would love for him to Akash, would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your passion for blockchain, the Web3 space in general, before you kick off into the session. And if you need anything, we're always here, and I'll be on the YouTube live chat helping people navigate their way through. And participants, if you have any questions, feel free to key it on the YouTube live chat, and we're here to support. Also, Discord, you can feel free to post your questions, tweet your questions, or YouTube live chat. Akash, over to you.
Thank you so much, Kritika, and welcome everybody. Welcome to you all on this particular masterclass per se on cryptocurrencies. My name is Akash, and I've been into this whole blockchain and cryptocurrency space for past more than 5 years and counting. So my journey, like I suppose you people are also having in your graduation years, trying to see and find things that you'd like to pursue once you are once you have completed your graduation. So for me, also I was in a state like this 5 years back, wherein I was doing my graduation, doing my engineering from India. And while I was doing at it, I used to have a liking towards reading stuffs, right? So they used to be pretty. Sometimes it would be technical, sometimes it would not be technical, and it would be just some random article that I'd find interesting. So my own journey started by stumbling upon an article about CryptoKitty, and I went through the article and I kind of felt the need to learn more. So it seemed interesting. It seemed very novel to learn about something that has this level of decentralization, is not actively governed by anybody but by a predetermined sets of rules and regulations, right? So I uh, kind of found myself liking towards the entire blockchain umbrella, and that's where I started studying more about it, reading a couple of books, reading more articles, watching videos, following prominent people in this space who were already in this domain for more than a few years. So I suppose the journey for each of us would, be looking like more or less towards the same degree. But yeah, so at today, I have worked in different organizations, worked as a blockchain developer per se. I have developed applications for enterprises. I have also worked in couple of open communities, helped couple of younger startups to form a clear roadmap where they want to be and how they'd want to be. So I don't limit myself specifically towards writing codes, but that's where I primarily earn my bread and butter from. So that's pretty much about myself. And for if I talk about today's session, it would primarily be around cryptocurrencies, and also we'd be going over some fundamentals and concepts in and around cryptocurrencies. What is a cryptocurrency and those sort of stuff. So, and also, like one of the most important aspects of cryptocurrencies is the crypto economics, which we try to go deeper as we move ahead with our presentation, with our discussion. And I'm hoping by the end of this session, everybody has a clear idea of what a cryptocurrency is, why the need of having a cryptocurrency rose in the very first step, and what the future of transactions and money or value looks like, right? So let's kick in and start today's session. So, what is a token? A token is a crypto asset. But before we jump into this whole crypto world, I'd first like to draw your attention towards a current system that is in place and has been in place for past more than a couple of centuries, and that is the fiat currencies. Now, in order to understand fiat currency, we'll also have to understand what its current state is and why it has motivated people from past couple of decades uh, to try and find an alternative for a current fiat ecosystem that is there. So what are fiat currencies? Fiat currencies, if we go deeper into it, are nothing and they are not backed by anything other than the faith of the people who accept it as payment and of other people who agree in turn to accept it as payment from them. So, in this very statement, you can understand is that the whole concept where we are taught that fiat currencies are are a certain thing and they are backed by something which you can redeem is a false notion in itself. They're not backed by anything. All they are backed and all they have is the faith of the people, faith of you and me who accept it as payment and who are ready to exchange assets by accepting those payments. So, going by the pre-pandemic studies, let's talk about the money supply in dollars. I mean, that is the most widely used fiat currency that is out there, right? So, according to pre-pandemic studies, only about 10% of the US money supply, that is about 1 trillion of the roughly 10 trillion total, exist in the form of paper, cash, and coins. And there is nothing stopping our banking system from creating more dollars whenever the mood strikes. As you'd all know, that when pandemic stuck economies around the world, there was and it still is a huge influx in the inflation, and uh, each of the central agencies, the central banks that are there in each of the countries, have resorted to printing more and more and more money. What this has resulted is, let's say you have a 100 rupees note in your pocket right now, and if our central government at this very stage decides that in order to boost the growth, in order to reduce the increased demand for prices, it decides to mint more and more 100 rupee notes. So after a given period of time, the 100 rupee note that you had with you will start having its value reduced. Now, how does that happen? It just how the fiat currencies work, right? And this is what we call that the purchasing power of a currency has reduced because the central bank had decided to mint more and more number of currencies to boost growth or to whatever reason. So a question comes up, what is the alternative to this and what does the future of transactions look like? So, what I believe and the crypto world in general believes is that we need a decentralized system that do not collapse at a single point of failure. These central banks, these are prone to attacks all over the world. The Fed Reserve, the Reserve Bank of India, these banks are are a single entity and hence are vulnerable to a single point of failure. Their policies cannot be changed at will, and they can decide at any given instance by which can be triggered by something like a pandemic or something like an increased inflation, that they can decide to increase and reduce the money supply. And ultimately what will happen is that the amount that you have stored somewhere with you will have its value reduced. So what we need is a system that has incorruptible ledger, not only because of the system's distribution and not only because of its clever cryptographic safeguards, but because of the good faith and good sense of individual developers, right? The kind of faith that I was talking about. The fiat currencies are also backed by the faith of the people. And when it comes to cryptocurrencies, we are not just limiting ourselves to the faith of the faith of individuals or the few developers, but we have certain mathematically implanted cryptographic functions that ensure that whatever rule that were pre-agreed upon remains as such and cannot be changed. Whatever transaction that you and I do remains in the ledger throughout the history of it and is never changed, right? So that's where our cryptocurrency has found its origin. That's where people have felt the need to have an alternative to a fiat currency, right? So that's what our cryptocurrencies and the initial history of cryptocurrency looks like, and why the need of cryptocurrency rose in the first place, right? So now, coming back to our today's discussion about tokens. Now, before we go forward with it, we need to understand what a token is. So, a token can be something that has any digital value. It can be anything that has a digital value, and it can be traded or held like a normal fiat currency. So, at basic level, the coins, all coins, like be it bitcoins, will go more deeper into it, but all coins that are there like bitcoins or ethereum, they all can be considered as tokens, but not all tokens are considered crypto coins, right? So let's move forward with different types of tokens. And for someone who is being involved in crypto or blockchain space, we are bound to come across various types of tokens, right? So it makes sense for us to understand these different kinds of tokens and what they are used for and what sets them apart from other types of token. This entire crypto space has this huge number of different types of token, and they are specifically built by developers, by people like you and me, to serve certain specific purposes. So the very first category that we are going to see is utility tokens. And utility tokens are, you can think of them as a product that gives the holders access to blockchain products and services. Now, inside these utility tokens, there are primarily two major types of tokens that are there. First of all is the DeFi token. I'm sure you must all have heard about the DeFi, these centralized finance space, right? So DeFi token is a new world of cryptocurrency based protocols that aim to reproduce traditional financial system like lending, saving, insurance, trading, anything. So when we talk about making a shift towards this cryptocurrency space, towards this coins and tokens, and towards an ecosystem that is powered by a blockchain system, right? So the very first thing that the very first set of challenges that we need to solve is the replication of the existing fiat ecosystem. Like at present time, our fiat system enables us to, do enables us to lend our money, enables us to put our money in banks, in different sort of instruments to save them. We can put them in order for them to grow over the period of time, and it also helps us trade that money for something else. We can trade our fiat money for something else in order to get that particular thing, right? So DeFi tokens are basically DeFi tokens came to the picture to replicate this traditional financial system. These protocols, the DeFi protocols, issue tokens that perform a wide variety of functions that can be also traded or held like any other cryptocurrency. And one of the like the bigger example, if I talk about, can be considered DAI, which is nothing but a token that is used by MakerDAO organization and is pegged to stablecoin. I won't go very deep into that just yet. We'll tackle each and every term, stablecoin and all these other terms as and when they come, right? So that was about the DeFi tokens. Now comes the governance tokens, right? So this decentralized space that we talk about, how does it uh, find itself to be governed by different sets of rules, different sets of people? Like who decides the direction of a given project or a given ecosystem that is being developed by independent developers? So how do we incentivize the users that are present in the system to act in a manner that is good for the ecosystem, good for the project? So that is where the governance tokens come into the picture. Like the most DeFi tokens are linked to DeFi protocols, which in some instances are governed almost entirely by the community of users. And to help the user, right, to participate in future decision making processes, be it and different types of DeFi platforms, users are required to purchase and hold to what is called as the governance tokens, right? So these tokens possess special rights and allow holders to vote on proposed changes to the platform, and they act as uh, a binding set of rules. Governance tokens can also act like a binding set of rules for the developer team, so that they can help the development team to come up to a decision. And anytime there needs to be voting involved, some kind of a consensus involved, wherein the team wants to decide which direction to move forward with, these governance tokens come into the picture, and the individuals or the members holding these governance tokens get the ability to participate in this sort of decision making procedures. And often, very often, these governance tokens act as proxies for the confidence in the project. Like, let's say a project is in very initial stage of its development. The idea is there, but the implementation is still yet to come. But the team comprises of very talented individuals who have had strong backgrounds, have worked on fantastic projects over the period. So for them to bootstrap the project, the governance tokens act as proxies. They can act as an indicator. Like, let's say if governance tokens for a given ecosystem or a given platform is doing well enough, right? It can be considered as a as a vote of confidence by the market, by the whole cryptocurrency and blockchain space, that they consider the vision and they are invested in the vision of this entire project. So governance tokens are basically just that. They help the individuals who hold it to finalize the decision making, but they also act as an indicator for other people to judge how that whole ecosystem, how that whole project is being governed, and how that whole project is being made. So that was the primarily two types of utility tokens that are there. And a very good example of a governance token can be considered as UNICEF's own UNI token, which is also one of the largest governance tokens that are there. And using that, people have the right, and people exercise their uh, rights to, you know, just decide the course of the entire project and helps it grow. So that was about the governance tokens. Now let's jump to different types of token. The second variety is the security token. Now, a security token is a class of, it can be considered that in a traditional finance, a security is defined as a stake of ownership in a public traded corporation, like stocks, like shares, right? Where a creditor relationship with the public entity is is understood by a right to ownership sort of a situation. So security tokens are just that. They are just tokenized securities, and they are digital form of the same set of shares and stocks that are there present in the traditional fiat ecosystem, right? So they are just that. And as you can see, their main use is to sell shares in a company, very much like the initial and conventional markets that are there at present. There you won't find many examples of security tokens just of yet, because the developers or the organizations that are in the cryptocurrency space, they do not want themselves to be labeled as security tokens, because if your token is labeled as a security token, then it then just by association, a stringent set of rules and frameworks and protocols are forced upon you. So although there are quite a few security tokens that are in circulation, but the general tendency is for the developers to avoid that name tag of security tokens. And then comes everybody's current favorite type of token, that is non-fungible tokens. Now, what are non-fungible tokens? Non-fungible tokens are cryptographically unique tokens, right, that are linked to a digital content and sometimes physical as well. And what they do in the process is that they provide proof of ownership, correct? So they can be thought of as an assets that contain identifying information recorded in smart contracts. Again, what is the smart contract? We'll come back to it later. For now, we can just consider smart contracts uh, as a set of code written on a blockchain, wherein all the business logic is present in the smart contracts, and the entire ecosystem is governed by the sets of rule that is written in smart contracts. So our NFTs are basically just that. The identifying information for each of the NFT is present in these smart contracts, and it is this information, this identifying information, that makes each NFT unique. And as such, they cannot be directly replaced by another token, and they cannot be swapped like for like, as no two NFTs are similar. For example, if we talk about CryptoKitties, the initial uh, game that was very popular in the Ethereum blockchain space. So those CryptoKitties were nothing but a type of non-fungible tokens. They were, each of them were unique, and this is where they used to draw their value from, by this uniqueness. So if you have a CryptoKitty and if I have a CryptoKitty, they would at all time be very different, and we can choose to have them interact with each other, but we cannot really replace them, or we cannot have a like for like exchange, right? So non-fungible tokens and their smart contracts allow for detailed attributes to be added, like the identity of the owner, rich metadata, and secure file links. So there is a clear distinction between fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens, and uh, the non-fungible tokens, again, in terms of Ethereum, can be considered as ERC 721 tokens, which I suppose you people have already had some exposure in this partner master classes that has been happening up till now. So we'll jump into that a little later. But that this is what a non-fungible token is, and this is where they kind of draw their value from, right? And the payment tokens are very similar. It can be considered as the predominant kind of a token and one of the very initial category of tokens that was there in the crypto ecosystem. And just like our Ethereum, Bitcoin, they are fungible tokens, and they can be considered to serve a value, and they can be directly exchanged and can be considered to can be considered as a store of value. So that are our payment tokens like Bitcoin, Ethereum. We can use it to pay for a transaction. We can send it to someone. We can have a like for like replacement of Bitcoins and Ethereum coins, Ether basically. So payment tokens are basically just that. Now, we'll talk a little more theoretical aspects of cryptocurrencies, what it is, what it is not, and basically, like as we have talked about up till now. So, digital or a virtual currency that is secured by cryptography. So, at the crux of the entire conversation that we are having right now, what enables a cryptocurrency to act like the way it is acting right now? What enables blockchains to, you know, be an immutable store of a ledger? So it is all secured by a branch of mathematics called cryptography, which makes it very impossible for any kind of counterfeiting to happen, any sort of double spending to happen, and it eliminates the entire need of third party intermediaries. So any two persons that are situated at different parts of world, having no contact with each other, do not know anything about each other, can still rely on that ecosystem of blockchain and the principles of cryptography to, and they can be assured that whatever transactions that they do will never be counterfeited, and the money that they spend will not be termed as a double spending problem. That is like a very much of a problem in today's world. So cryptography, what exactly comes under cryptography? There are basically various ways of encryption functions. There are thousands and hundreds of algorithms out there, and all of them come together in some capacity to ensure and safeguard the blockchain ecosystem, cryptographic ecosystem. So we'll go a little deeper into it. Although cryptography in itself is a very diverse branch in itself, very complex branch, and it doesn't like it's not part of today's scope. So we try to have a very basic conversation in and around it. But by the end of today's session, I'd like to encourage you all to explore further into it, because whatever you decide, uh, whatever capacity that you decide that you'd be part of this entire blockchain and Web3 ecosystem, you'll need to have some degree of exposure to cryptography in order to appreciate how this entire puzzle is coming together and creating a very decentralized ecosystem, a very level playing field for each of us, right? So that's also going to be kind of your what do you say, problem statement for today, but we'd come to it at later stage. Okay, so let's talk about the history of cryptocurrencies. So over the period, as you can see in the slide, over the period, there has been conscious development made in this system, in this area by different people. And one of the original pioneers were Mr. David Strom. So what he did was he created a cryptographic electronic money called eCash, and he was one of the first person to do this transaction, a virtual transaction that had cryptography, and that was governed and safeguarded by cryptographic functions. Previously, as well, we had some degree of virtual money transfers, but they were primarily for the fiat money, and they were not necessarily governed by any cryptographic principles that we just talked about. So he was the he's considered to be one of the original pioneers, and a lot of credit goes to him. And of course, by the year 2009, we all know about how the Bitcoin came into existence, and like a pseudonymous developer called Satoshi Nakamoto. So he went ahead and created a set of rules, a set of governing principles, using which and based on which a cryptocurrency called Bitcoin is going to function. And as we all know, it's been more than a decade since it first came into the picture. And even though at different stages it had been attacked by malicious personals to break into Bitcoin, perform different types of hacks, it is still going very strong. Why is that? Again, the crux of all of this is cryptography and the innate nature of cryptography, that it holds everything secure, and it makes use of different mathematical functions to provide this security to these blockchains and cryptocurrencies. And El Salvador in 2021 became the first country to accept Bitcoin as a legal tender. Now, it might not sound as big of a deal, but for the traditional countries who have in general resented towards accepting bitcoins as a legal tender, it is a huge change. And we wish that going forward, as more and more people get engaged into this space, people like you who are just getting introduced to this space, are willing to explore this, have a vision, have this dedication to build something great for everybody, create a level playing field for everybody. Uh, we hope that going forward, more and more countries would start accepting the different cryptocurrencies as a legal tender, and it would be uh, a great thing to happen to this the whole way how we do a financial transaction in today's world. So, as we have talked a lot about cryptography, now it makes sense that we try to understand a little bit about it. Again, we won't dive much deeper into it, but we'll just try to understand a couple of very basic initial things about cryptography and whole cryptographic functions in general. So, before we go deep into it, so what I want people to understand is a couple of terms, a couple of you can say functions regarding that. So I'd like to talk about the primary things, and I'd like to limit this discussion towards very specific things, again because cryptography, as I said, is a very diverse field. So we try to limit it. So let's talk about encryption in general, and we'd be talking primarily about two types of encryption. One is the symmetric encryption, and other is asymmetric encryption. Now, the main difference between symmetric and asymmetric encryption is that symmetric encryption makes use of a secret key, right? There is a function through which we input our plain message, right? A plain message that needs to be encrypted, and we encrypt it by making use of a secret key. Then that message, that raw message that we call as plain text, gets converted into this thing called encrypted message, and we can safely and securely transmit that encrypted message to somebody that is at the opposite end of the world, right? If we want to have the privacy in our communication, we can choose to do that. But the problem arises is not how we transmit the message, but how we transmit the key, because it's the same key that is now required to decrypt the message. The moment that we decide to send this secret key to that recipient so that he can finally decrypt the message, right, it puts the entire process at risk, that the attacker or somebody who's trying to steal the information will not need to actively decrypt the message itself. He'll just try to uh, intercept the secret key that we are sending, and will be able to just decrypt the entire conversation that was there happening. So in order to tackle that, asymmetric encryption came into the picture, wherein we make use of not one key but a set of two keys called public and private. Now the nature of public and private key is such that if I make use of my public key to encrypt a message, only my own private key can decrypt the message. So, a typical communication that is safeguarded by asymmetric encryption, it happens something in this manner, that when I want to send the message to the person, what I do is I perform a series of encryption and decryption algorithm. First of all, what I do, the plain text message that I want to convey to the other person, I make use of it, and I encrypt it by making use of my private key, right? So a first level of encryption happened, and then what I do is I again encrypt it with the public key of the recipient. So I have encoded twice, first using my own private key, and second by using my the recipient's public key. Now I have sent the entire message and this encrypted message over to that other person, to the recipient. Now the nature of public key is such that it is not kept as a secret. It can be made public, it can be available in the public space. So the recipient, upon getting the message, the encrypted message, first of all, what he'll do is he'll try to decrypt it by making use of my public key, which is already present in the common space, and he can make use of it. So he'll perform the public key and try to decrypt the message. If he's able to do that, he'll be able to ascertain himself that this particular set of message that is coming to him is coming from just me, and nobody else can like pretend to have encrypted on my behalf. So that level of safety and safeguarding is maintained. This was the first stage of decryption, and in order to actually read the message, the final message, he'll ultimately decrypt it using his own private key, which only he knows and nobody else knows. So through this entire process, we can very confidently say that entire communication that was happening between two people is safeguarded, and only those two people having their original sets of public and private key can be privy to that entire message and that entire communication. So it's that is how our asymmetric encryption works, and it is very widely used in today's communication world, be it the crypto space, and it's not just limited to crypto space. Even the normal communications that we do in our day-to-day lives, it is also at the uh, protocol level governed by this asymmetric encryption cryptography, right? So these were the two basically different types of encryptions, and now we'd come to of a process that is called hashing in our cryptography branch. Now, hashing is nothing but uh, making use of a function, a mathematical function again, and passing it an information. And that information can be anything. It can be a message, it can be our passwords, and when we feed this information to that particular mathematical function, what happens is that it outputs a fixed string of characters. Like say, if we are making use of different hashing algorithms, SHA-256, you might have come across these terms, right? SHA-256 and these sort of hashing functions. So what happens is that when we send our message to these functions, it cannot be reversed back, and nobody can get the original message from the hashed code that we received from the hashing process. So what we do is we insert a plain text message, we send it to our hashing functions, and using the output value, we can be sure by making and storing of that hashing value, we can be sure that nobody can make or decrypt or understand what was the original text message. And hashing is basically the you can say the procedure using which our passwords are kept secure, right? We make use of passwords to log into different websites, to log into our different accounts. So what happens behind the scene is that the username gets stored in the database, but the password does not get stored in the database. The password is first of all hashed, and this hashed version of the password is stored in the database. So next time when you're coming to that website or coming to log into your account again, what happens behind the scene in the codes is that your password that you have entered at that very juncture when you're trying to re-log into the system is hashed again, and after hashing and getting the value, it is compared from the value that is stored in the database, correct? So once this comparison is made, and if the comparison is successful, if the code tells us that they are similar and they are equal, the user is granted access to the website or to his account. So in this manner, uh, if anytime the database in which we are storing the information about the user, his username, his hash password, and all sort of other details, even if the database gets attacked and gets hacked or is compromised in some capacity, the attacker, just by seeing a hashed password, will never be able to guess what the original password was, right? Because it is just not possible. And that is essentially the beauty of different hashing functions, that they make it practically impossible for anybody to reconfigure and track back to the and come back to the original message that was there. So that is how you can understand the password storing of password happens, and that is how it is safeguarded. Now, coming back to our crypto economics, so there are different terms. I think we are going behind on time, so I'd like to quickly go through each of the term and what exactly are the characteristics of the ideal currency, right? So fungibility is there. Fungibility is nothing but the very small unit of a currency. Durability is something that the currency that you are storing should not be something like you have stored your value, you have invested in a currency today, and sometimes down the line it is of no use. So that does not counts as an ideal currency for us. Similarly, the currency should be portable. It should be easy to move around it, even in large chunks, and it should be recognizable. People should recognize and accept it. And of course, it should be ideally it should be very stable. But as we discussed initially, That is now not what the case is when the pandemic stuck and the entire ecosystem became very less stable. So these are apparently the good characteristics of the ideal currency and how they should be. And that brings us to the question that what makes a good cryptocurrency, right? What can be considered a good cryptocurrency, and what we as an investor, let's say I want to invest in different types of cryptocurrency. So what set of rules and guidelines I should follow for me to before I decide that I'd be investing in this cryptocurrency, or I'd be making use of this cryptocurrency to do whatever payment that I want to do. So very first thing is there should be appropriate supply in the ecosystem. It should not be like that there are only 100 bitcoins or there are only 100 ethers in the ecosystem. No, there should be appropriate supply present in the ecosystem. That is what we call liquidity. There should be appropriate liquidity in the system, but at the same time there should be a demand. People should be willing to come to the to this blockchain, and to people should be wanting to make use of these cryptocurrencies for it to be termed as a good cryptocurrency, right? So there are various measures and various rules and regulations how this supply and demand thing is managed, and all of it is predetermined and hard coded into that protocol for a given blockchain. So like as in case with Bitcoin is, there can only be maximum number of 21 million bitcoins that can be in the supply, and it is governed by a set of rules and regulations and everything, right? So then comes our cost of production. Ideally it should not be very difficult to mine a cryptocurrency, right? The initial stages of cryptocurrencies made use of proof of work consensus mechanism, and what it did was it had a developer or a miner needed to perform mining operations in order to mine the bitcoins and Ethereum, and this entire process was very expensive. So initially, although it was a very good way to go about it, having proof of work consensus mechanism helped the ecosystems to grow because it was very secure and very safe, and it was very difficult for people to counterfeit the transaction and present a falsified transaction. But over the period of time, as we have seen, is the uh, uh, ability for new people to be part of this entire process has got very limited because the cryptographic functions have become very difficult to find a solution to, and it requires a lot of electricity, a lot of computational power is required. So it has all resulted in a very higher cost of mining, and that is the reason that at this stage the bitcoins have a very high value when in comparison to a dollar. And a normal person like me and you, we cannot just go ahead and buy a bitcoin because it has the cost of production and the sets of rules that govern bitcoins have made it very costly to produce, and in turn very costly for us to purchase. So ideally, that should not be the case. And as we can see in case of Ethereum, the entire community is trying to make a transition from proof of work consensus mechanism to proof of stake consensus mechanism, wherein it's the large computational power that is required for the miners is no more a requirement. Second, uh, what the third point actually, what constitutes a good cryptocurrency. So in order for more and more people to invest in cryptocurrencies, more and more people to come into this entire space and accept cryptocurrency as an alternative to fiat currencies, they should be traded on exchanges. They should be made available for the vast majority of people so that they can come into a place and buy those cryptocurrencies, right? Only after buying those cryptocurrencies can you, decide to maybe invest with it, or maybe you'd want to purchase with it. So the availability should be maintained at all costs. So that should be always there. And lastly, I suppose it's the community that is backing that entire cryptocurrency should always make sure that they follow proper sets of guidelines. Each and every member of the team is taken into consideration while making a decision. They should make use of governance tokens, right? That we talked about initially, using which the different sets of decisions should be taken, and whole this what do you call, the decision making process should always be transparent, because it is not being governed by a central entity. Not Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other public blockchains are not governed by a single company. They are governed by the good and huge community of developers like you and me, who have their trust and are invested in this vision of having a level playing field for everybody. So a very good governance ecosystem should be there, and each and every regulation should be made very transparent, and people should be encouraged to get invested into the ecosystem by making use of these governance tokens. So that should be there. And lastly, of course, it should be uh, governed and should abide all the legal regulations that are there, so that crypto assets that are there in the public space, they can always be taxed appropriately and can be regulated appropriately. Now, coming to this tokens versus coins, we have talked a lot about bitcoins and different sort of tokens that are there. So, bitcoins, Ethereums, and those sort of cryptocurrencies generally fall under coins, and tokens are, you can consider tokens as digital assets that do not necessarily have their own blockchain. Like the Bitcoin and Ethereum, they have their own blockchains, right? But the tokens like the TIE token or the Uni token, they don't necessarily have their own blockchains. So that is the essential difference between a coin and a token. And of course, the similarity is also present, that both tokens and coins represent a, a value, right? A token can also represent a value, and a coin like a Bitcoin and Ethereum, as we know, can also represent a value. Now, a small example about stable coin, like the cryptocurrency stable coin is nothing but primarily designed to be pegged by another cryptocurrency or a fiat currency. So the fluctuation that is happening with a given stable coin, right, is pegged and is related by the fluctuation in any other fiat currency or any other cryptocurrency. So that's what our stable coins generally are. And again, they are not like necessarily a native tokens on a blockchain, but they are built on top of other blockchains. So they are kind of like more, they are more like a tokens and less like Bitcoin and Ethereum in that respect. Now, as you people, I suppose, have also worked in developing ERC20, ERC721 smart contract. So the NFTs and different, anytime we want an asset to be unique and we want an asset to be non-fungible, it comes under it's governed by the rules and regulation of ERC 721 uh, rules. And anytime we are trying to create fungible tokens that can be divisible, are not unique, and can be exchanged for value, they come under the ERC 20 rules and regulations. So we are almost nearing our end of today's discussion, or more of a webinar kind of thing. So what I'd want is to present you people with certain questions, and I'd like to encourage you people, to go after this session and explore more towards it. Uh, it can be just from the theoretical point of view. It can be for you to understand better this whole space, and just in general would help you, have a lot better clarity about the cryptocurrencies in general, and why they are what they are at this very given time. So the given the very small nature of cryptocurrency users at the moment, what do you think, and how do you think can cryptocurrencies scale from lower number of users to large number of users, right? What is the barrier that is stopping you from doing a transaction in cryptocurrencies, and what do you think can be done to tackle this problem, right? Similarly, what do you think are the limit of tokenization? Should there be any limit to tokenization? Like at this given point, we are tokenizing digital arts, we are tokenizing musical pieces, we are tokenizing collectible cards, right? So these are, you can say, the initial use cases of tokenization. But how far should we go ahead? Should we tokenize our emotions, our relationships, human interactions? Because let's accept it, like nobody had thought about NFTs in general a couple of decades earlier. So these questions are more to trigger your thought of flow of thought when you think about the crypto space uh, 10, 20, 30 years down the line, right? So think about in that perspective and try to answer this, like what should and how should we limit tokenization, and eventually, like, could cryptocurrencies eventually replace fiat money? Because at the end of it, we like the start of this session started with telling you how the fiat money works and the drawbacks in the current ecosystem. So what do you think? Is it feasible that cryptocurrencies can entirely replace fiat money? Will it be possible that they kind of form a balance, that cryptocurrencies also become a bigger take a bigger part in the today's financial transaction, but fiat money also remains there? So they kind of form a balance, like a 50-50, that 50% of the entire transaction that are happening happens on cryptocurrencies, because it is beneficial to do that kind of a transaction over cryptocurrencies, the principles and the good features that it brings over a fiat money. And what do you think the future of cryptocurrency in general looks like? So these are the three theoretical questions per se for you to explore, and just think about it. Stay with these questions for extended period of time and try to see where you are going, where your thought process is taking you, and try to answer these things. And apart from that, I'd like you to prepare a list of different attacks that has happened on public blockchains like Ethereum and Bitcoins, and what do you think that can be done to avoid it? So I'd like you to prepare a list of different attacks, and how it happened, when it happened, and most importantly, what you think that could have been done to avoid it. Whether protocol should have been, more strictly governed, or there were some critical bugs in the source code itself. Whatever you think it was the result of a given attack, I'd like you to explore that and come up with a solution of your own, that what you think could have been done differently to avoid that attack, right? So that pretty much sums up today's session. And just to uh, uh, give you a summary of the entire things, we talked about fiat currencies, the drawbacks in fiat currencies, the current financial system, how it doesn't provide a level playing field for all of us, and the emergence of cryptocurrencies, how it started, the original pioneers by David Shum, Satoshi Nakamoto, and those sort of people, how they decided and uh, felt the need that crypto equivalent for a fiat currency should be made available to the masses, that also provides you a trustless mechanism, is decentralized in nature, doesn't have a single point of failure. We touched upon different sort types of tokens and coins that are present there, the DeFi tokens, security tokens, governance tokens, and we clearly saw why each of them have their own requirement, and how all of them together are trying to replicate the current financial system and are trying to better it in their own ways, right? So that was pretty much today's discussion. And there are like further links for you to understand, for further links for you to explore. And I'd highly encourage you people to, apart from the couple of questions that I asked you earlier, you go and explore these individual links and try to understand more about it, right? So I suppose this slide would be provided to you, and whatever questions that you people have, and uh, anything that came up to your mind through this entire 1 hour long almost session, whatever you think of your thought process, I'd like all of you to come back to our Discord channel and post your thoughts, post your questions, and of course post this uh, solution to different attacks that have happened over blockchains, right? So I'd highly encourage you people to follow it, and that's it from my side. Uh, Good
Thanks
luck.
a lot, Akash. Yeah, thanks a lot, Akash, for taking the time and walking people through all the concepts in detail. We have a couple of questions. Do you have some time to handle them? Like, I can, or we can ask people to post questions on our Discord and we can answer them async.
We can do it either way. I think moving over to Discord would be a little better, because
Got it.
I'd also be able to, provide links for like supporting my argument, supporting my articulation. I'd be able to provide links for people to
Sure,
help
sure.
them.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So, folks who've asked questions on the live chat, please head to the Partnr Discord server and post your questions. Alternatively, you can also tag us at the rate PARTNR3 on Twitter and post your questions. And Akash and the team will get back to you. Yeah, thanks a lot, Akash, again for taking out the time. And thanks for those of you who've tuned in on a Sunday evening. Hope you've liked the session, and looking forward to hosting y'all for more such sessions. And if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, anything that is rebellious, anything that is radical, we always entertain thoughts. We always entertain people to take action on things that matter. So feel free to jump into Partner's Discord server and key in your thoughts, and we're happy to take the conversation forward. Again, thanks everyone, and I think we'll close the live in a bit.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Kritika, for having me. And happy learning, everyone. Let's connect over our Discord channel and answer all of your queries.